But the idea that an opposition leader or opposition MPs wouldn't come down to meet people angry with the government, to me is just unbelievable, because you're looking for like every vote that you can get, and you don't have to agree. I've met with Maori I've met with every protester that ever turned up to Parliament. No, not because I agree.
It's your duty, isn't it?
I agree, absolutely. It's your duty. You're a House of Representatives. You're in a very, very privileged position. These people don't have your access, and they've come to Parliament to express a view, and you're duty-bound to go and listen to it. And it wouldn't matter if it was one, I'd go down and talk to them, because we're in New Zealand. It's the size of a little city anywhere in the world. But the thing I like about I've said I'm a single-issue voter this election, first time in my life. I'm going to vote for the party that promises a parliamentary inquiry into the vaccine injured. And the party that does that, they got my vote. But Leighton's got my vote because he turned up to the protest and was a leader there, and he stood firm. And so I feel that there is a man of principle.
And that was one of the things that was used to kind of give them an out, not to confront. You'd have no leader. You know, you're all disparate sort of wackos who can't sort out who the boss is. And they used that as a pretext for not communicating. I mean, you were there. I know there were a few politicians sort of walking up and down the lanes, let's say, kind of keeping a low profile. Did you get to talk to any of them during that time?
No.
No?
Not one of them. Not one of them actually came to properly engage. And I mean, Winnie runs in, gets a photo op, runs away. You know,
but wasn't Seymour himself around the protest?
I know. From what I know about what happened with Seymour
he went across the road, didn't he, to the backbencher?
From what I heard, he was sitting in a cafe somewhere, or he might have been sitting in the backbencher, hiding away in a corner, and protesters found him and confronted him. And then he said he met with protesters. But was it a meeting or was it a confrontation?
And the other thing is, maybe you guys haven't heard this before. I compared an event for the Free Speech Union in Dunedin last year, and Michael Woodhouse was on the panel. Michael Woodhouse maintains that he was out and about talking to the protesters. Now, no public record of that.
No, he definitely didn't get on a mic and say anything. They definitely didn't come down the steps and say anything.
It's very interesting what you say about no leaders, because that's very true. And at the protest. And that was, to my mind, unprecedented of a protest to Parliament. Because you normally expect, the farmers to organise, and they have a person that's organised it, and they have a delegation, and they go off and they can go and see the minister's office. This thing was spontaneous. It was from the ground up. It was literally people seeing the convoy and saying, I'm off to Wellington, and joining in. And it was that spontaneity that made it. It was like our Woodstock moment, it was just amazing. And the fact no one would presume to speak on behalf of the people that were there, because every person there had their own story. And again, that was what was so powerful about it. And I was there. I'd never presumed to speak on behalf of anyone there, because it wasn't organised. But
that doesn't stop someone standing up and saying, okay, this is incredible. I see you all here. I understand the issues. I hear you. I'm here.
A politician could do that.
I can't do anything more than that.
It would have been enough.
I reckon they would have gone home, to be honest. If Jacinda had come down those steps, and she had said, look, I hear what you're saying. I understand what I've put you through over the last few months or over the last year has been traumatic. I understand that there are people that have personal stories, but what you have to understand is I'm trying to do this for the greater good of our country. I'm trying to do this for this reason, this reason, this reason. Please understand that as soon as I possibly can, I will drop the mandates, because I understand. Yeah. If she had done that, I think most of them would have gone home.
So that's
to be
about
honest.
a minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
If Chris Luxon had come down and spoken to that group, he'd be on his way to being Prime Minister right now.
Absolutely. So
he would be a different...
So they don't know how to call it even.
I don't think they...
Can you run a country when you don't even understand that?
I don't think they began to understand. I didn't understand what was going on. And I watched that protest through Chantelle, and I was there, and then I got the opportunity to go just for a day, and it was the most amazing experience of my life, outside of, personal family things, that I have ever experienced by an order of magnitude. And I felt it the moment I walked in.
Electric.
It was warm, it was engaging, and it made me realise what New Zealand had lost. Yeah. Because there were people who were smiling, there were people who were happy, there were people that were hugging. I'm not a hugger, and I ended up loving getting hugs because we had become so fearful of each other. You'd go and do your shopping in the supermarket all masked up and everyone's scared and they'd all be like this around you. And suddenly you were with people and there was this warmth. And it just felt... And clever people who could sing and dance and build toilets and construct stuff.
Right here we have one of the finest toilets in New Zealand. Brand spanking new and freshly painted. Gosh, it smells good in here. This is ingenious. Someone's actually built some planter boxes. I'm just going to try a little bit of this fresh lettuce here. That tastes like freedom.
And you saw that. I've never seen anything like that. And of course the other thing about the protests there is there were people there that had lost everything.
However, I want you to consider that for some people, they may have lost their homes. People have lost their jobs over these mandates. People have lost their income. And for so many people here, this may be all they have right now.
There's no sympathy. Well, there is. But amongst a lot of people, there's no sympathy for that.
No. And people who had lost their health through the vaccines. And so you were there and you realised these people had... normally you get a protest and it rains, everyone rushes home. Right? Because it's not serious, really.
It's raining.
Most you get Greenpeace and it rains, they're gone. These protests, it poured. They had sprinklers on them. They had abuse hurled at them. They were there. And then the people that were there were tradespeople. They were farmers. They were business people.
They kicked in.
They could do stuff. They could feed themselves. They could house themselves. They could make sanitary arrangements.
We've got a school now. A school? Yes. We are teaching the children. We have got a massage area. We have got first aid tents. We have got, what else? Security.
Are you a trained medical professional?
I'm an intensive care paramedic.
It was amazing. These are people... Never protested in their life before.
How could you turn your back on people like that? I still can't get to the bottom of that.
No, even if you disagree with everything they said or stood for.
They must have known in their hearts that this was wrong.
I think
the politicians. They must have.
So.
I don't know, though. I've spoken to a few people, and the whole rhetoric of January the 6th and insurrection, with those dangerous people that were just holding flags. No, I know, but those dangerous people just holding flags, taking photos for a building, whatever. So they have tried to. They genuinely thought that the protesters were going to try and take the building at some stage, and so that was the rhetoric that was going all throughout Parliament. So people genuinely were scared because they had no idea.
But again, that
what was
deliberate.
actually happening exactly. And they were told that they were not allowed to go down by their party. So none of them came down. But I remember after that first day of violence, when the people were sitting down, backs to the police, just being put in headlocks, dragged out. Old ladies had their collarbones broken and all of that. Because my mum and dad and even my fiance Jake, they weren't up there at that stage. I wasn't even going to go to Wellington because I thought it would just end in Picton. I didn't know what was happening. I got the ferry across one day and then I ended up staying. I was there. I was definitely there.
We all know that.
That was when the ferry used to work.
Oh, back in the good old days. Lovely sunny day too. But I remember we got to the end of that day and you guys would have known. That was traumatic for I think thousands of us that kind of experienced it, that saw it the whole lot. And I rung mum and dad and I said, because I felt like A, there was a lack of leadership, but B, there were a lack of any authority figures. So, and by that I mean people that, someone that everyone recognised, someone that spoke a lot of sense, because if they recognised them, there were some people that just weren't saying much of anything, you know, or taking people down all these tracks that were really unhelpful. So I remember ringing Dad and just saying, like, they need you here. Like, you need to come. Like, I need you here, but they need you here more. People just needed someone level that could, you know, try and, like, just keep people calm and then talk to, like, the police and try and figure out, like, what they could actually do to help everybody, because it was an eclectic bunch of brilliant human beings.
The two things too. I was always worried that they couldn't demonstrate that the vaccine was safe, but I didn't believe that people would be injured by it. I just couldn't get that into my head. And when I went to the protest, it was my great privilege and great sadness to meet people who were so badly injured by that vaccine, acknowledged by their doctors and the medical profession as badly injured. This isn't stuff in their heads. And to see that level of suffering, I mean, for me, the lockdowns were an inconvenience and a frustration and an economic disaster. But to see New Zealanders who had done what were told by people they trusted and put their faith in the so-called science and the medical fraternity, and to see their bodies destroyed and their lives destroyed, and then to struggle to Parliament and to have no one. This wasn't a protest about what's right and what's wrong, what the government should do or shouldn't do. This was a protest about people that had done exactly what they had been told to do. They had been told, do this or you'll lose your job. And they have suffered catastrophic, lifelong injury. And they come to Parliament and not one person comes to visit them. Now here's the scary thing. The government admits that yes, there are people injured by the vaccine. And yes, there are people who died because of the vaccine. All we're arguing about is, say, the numbers, and I don't know the true number. So they admit that. Well, these injured people and the families and loved ones of these people who died were there that day. The people that made that decision to inflict that on them for the good of society in their eyes wouldn't even meet them. That is just, that's not, or I could go down there and get some votes, or I better go down and listen to this point of view. This is something very deeply, fundamentally inhuman.
I went back to another protest. I think it was maybe a month afterwards, after Wellington. They had a protest for the jab injured specifically, and they presented a big petition to one of the national guys. Can't remember his name. Presented a petition to one of the national guys. You had people there in wheelchairs, people that were severely debilitated.
That'll be your Michael Woodhouse moment.
Yeah, and what's happened from it?
I haven't heard anything.
I've heard absolutely nothing.
We're heading probably towards the end of this chat now. So now we've kicked off RCR, Reality Check Radio. We're all going to be doing stuff here, and there'll be others as well.